I was gonna say, speaking of loops, obviously one of the most famous loops of all time in hip hop history is without question the Time's Up loop. And that beat. Let's just I want to give you your proper credit right now because I don't think people really understand during that time. You had Stretch and Bob. One of my most fondest memories of Stretch and Bob is when Large Pro came up with the MPC and you started getting busy up on that motherfucker. That shit was just fucking like some iconic shit that people don't talk about. Another iconic moment is that when every radio station back then in the underground in '94 came out with their top 10 list, top 20 list, whatever, the number one joint out of all those fucking lists was Sure Enough, Time's Up. And that doesn't get talked about enough. Yeah, B. You know what I'm saying? Martin Moore, Mayhem, you know what I'm saying? At NYU, Stretch and Bob, like, that was the number one beat. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was it. I know, like, Pharaoh, I heard the story about Pharaoh turning it down, like it being like an unfinished joint. Just talk a little bit about how that record, how iconic it is, how it's still relevant, especially today, and the record is 23 years old. Just talk about that a little bit, because that's definitely one of the greatest hip-hop records that was ever made.
Well, the crazy shit is March ain't turning the joint down. March is people was hitting him with so much music because everybody wanted to record joints with him. This cat named Prestige, he turned out to be one of the hitmen for Bad Boy later on. He brought the loop over, and I was sitting in the crib when he brought it over, and I heard it, and I was like, oh. So I just sat there quiet, you know what I'm saying? A couple of days passed too. March is still sitting on it. I'm like, yo, what you doing with that? Nah, I'm going to get to it. He's lackadaisy. He's very nonchalant. So a week passed, a couple of weeks passed. I stole the tape. Straight up. I ain't even going to lie. I stole the tape out of his crib like, I need that joint right there. So now I play it for Buck, and Buck was like, oh, I know what that is. I think he said Les McCann or whoever. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, but Prestige did this for March, but March ain't. He like, man, listen. He ain't doing nothing with it. It's who rock it first. And we turned around and started messing with it. And, to make a long story short, it took me a year to write to that joint. Because I didn't know it's so awkward.
It is.
At the time, I was like, how do you rhyme to this? Like, but I knew it was something that would catch people's ear. And after even finishing the record, I didn't like the record. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you think about it, that was the start of 2 verse joints on wax. Or I was one of the dudes who did 2 verses. And it just sounded unfinished to me. And Search was like, you stupid. Like, so I added the Slick Rick thing to it. He was like, I'm like, still empty. He like, yo, you bugging. Like, this is the one. And I'm like, I had to take his word for it because, he comes from third base. They had hit runs. Yeah. And I assume he had an ear. So I was like, whatever, man. Like, I don't think that's it, though. And he was like, all right, watch. He just kept telling me, watch. And I think they leaked it at first. And then, my older brother's death, we had a conversation about it, me and Search. And that's where he came up. He came up with the sign language symbols on the it was a promo tape going around, black and white, with OC and the sign language time, and OC and sign language, and it had Time's Up in black and white. And people started catching on to it. And I was like, wow, like, and he said, yo, the records you usually don't like be the records that pop. And that was it. Wow. That was his conversation to me. The records you usually don't like be the records that pop. I've been there. I went through it. And it came out and it banged out.
That's crazy. Did you get a bag from Eminem or whoever put that movie out for you?
Of course. Oh, it's a story with that too. It's a story, D. Like,
go ahead.
That, he used that in the movie.
No doubt.
When he was in the battle, in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
So now, I think maybe 2 years prior to that, they reached out to us and said they wanted to use the joint or whatever on the soundtrack in the movie. So we like, cool. 2 years passed though, and next thing you know, I'm in the crib on a Friday night, and I think the movie came out on the Friday. It did 100 million that weekend. So now Monday comes, everybody's calling me, yo, he froze up on the joint. I'm like, what? Like, what are y'all talking about? He's like, yo, he used your joint, and I know you got broke off. And I'm like, nah. Like, hold up. So the chick who was handling the sample clearance cleared Buck's part, but not mine. So she got fired. She got fired. She was adamant that she had my John Hancock on paper, and we like, where? Now I'm excited because I'm like, the movie did 100 million in 2 days, 3 days.
Damn.
Now I'm like, lawyer, got the lawyer, but the con to that was I was on the soundtrack for that. They snatched me off of that shit because I hit them in the pockets.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? With that litigation, you know what I'm saying? They had to, they dragged their feet, try to drag it out, prove they had me sign, put my signature on something, but it was like, nah, y'all got Anthony Best. Y'all don't have Old Cradle on there. You know what I'm saying? It was a 50-50 split. So what's up? And, they had to cut that check.
Damn.
There was no ifs, ands about it. So they had to hit me off for 2 years, like just on some they just had to I had a sweet deal for a couple of years, but they was like, fuck this nigga, we taking him off the soundtrack because that means he gonna get paid 3 times. He gonna get paid off litigation. He gonna get paid from the movie. His publishing gonna be crazy. So we taking them off the soundtrack, and it cost them to do that because once a record is pressed up, to snatch it off the shelves or before you put it on the shelves, it should cost like 200 G's to unpackage and repackage it.
Yeah, that's some spiteful.
I didn't even know that. That's crazy.
Yeah, I was bugging. I bought all kind of Range Rovers, Jaguars, all kind of stupid shit. You know what I mean? And
you ever talk to Eminem about or nah? It was music?
Nah. That went through. All that was lawyer stuff. But if I was thinking, you know what I'm saying? If somebody got in my ear, they was like, "Yo, you should have waited like a year." I'm like, "Why would I wait a year?" They like, "What? You see how much that shit did?" And I was like, "Yeah, you right. I should have waited. Like, I could have banged. I'd have been a millionaire off that shit."
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Real quick, on one more on the first round.